It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Ryan Moynihan, CEO at Gaidge and Impact 360. He has a diversified background in finance, analytics, strategy, sales, marketing, business development, product management, and operations with over 19 years experience across many Fortune 100 companies in the areas of healthcare, consulting, and technology. He worked at Disney, Intel, Ernst & Young, Miller Brewing Company before earning his MBA from Georgetown. He has spent the past 13 years of his career in the dental orthodontic industry with 3M and Ormco Danaher. Most recently as the Vice President of Global Marketing and Vice President of Sales for Ormco. He joined Gaidge in August 2017 as CEO. He has lived in 10 different cities throughout his professional career and recently completed a cross-country move to Atlanta, Georgia from Sacramento, California in early 2018 with his wife, Maria, 10 years, and two boys, Joseph, 9, and Macklin, 6. Ryan enjoys spending time with the family and being outdoors and pretty much anything sports related. He's got a University of New Mexico, his BBA in 97, Georgetown MBA in 2005. It's just an honor to have you come on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I want to go back through your history before we start talking. You spent 13 years of your career with 3M and Ormco, which is owned by Danaher. And Ormco and Danaher is now spinning off their dental division. I love their stock trading deal. They're going to call it NVST, which is cute because it sounds like invest. But what is your MBA thoughts on why do you think Danaher is spinning off their dental segment? What is that all about? And we saw it early in my career when what everybody calls Sirona used to be a part of a big conglomerate, and they decided. Well, do you remember the name of that conglomerate that Sirona started out with?
Dentsply Sirona?
Yeah. But anyway, they spun it off. But, they were just reweighting their portfolio. But why do you think Danaher is spinning off Ormco, Cavo, Noble Biocare? Why do you think they're doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's rebalancing the portfolio as well for Danaher. When you look at just the return on investment, what dental seems to bring to the table versus the other industries that make up the portfolio of Danaher. I think dental, a lot of times when it comes to capital reinvestment, isn't necessarily getting what the other industries are just because of its return on investment. So I think when them being a standalone business, I mean, all the businesses generate a ton of cash, but when they're able to be a standalone business, it's going to help them kind of use that cash that they do produce and make sure that it gets fully returned to the dental business so they can, try to get that, growth engine going back again. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons is just as you look at the whole portfolio. I mean, they spun off Fortive as well 2 or 3 years ago. And now it's time to kind of clean the portfolio up and they're spinning off the dental business. And I think dental being a standalone, I think it'll have a really good opportunity to gain a lot of that reinvestment of their capital for them to be able to invest in their strategic projects that they believe will drive their growth.
So
right now they're competing. I just say right now they compete for resources with the rest of the Danaher portfolio. So.
Yeah, I mean, I asked you to be on the show. You didn't ask me, and this isn't a commercial. I'm so impressed with everything you're doing. But with your background with such large companies, Disney, Intel, Ernst & Young, I'm surprised you didn't take all this knowledge and go join Smiles Direct Club in Tennessee or Invisalign. Was that a thought?
Not Smile Direct Club. So, no, I believe in the profession. And obviously, they've carved out a nice niche. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for orthodontic treatment in the U.S. If you look at, you being an orthodontist, if you look at people's smiles, there's a lot of folks that need their teeth corrected. Invisalign's always been an opportunity. But I think, for me, I've always been part of a big company. And for me to be part of a small company now where I can be in control as a CEO, make decisions, also help, grow that business. I mean, it's been a really, really exciting point of my professional career, making that switch. It's definitely not for the faint of heart a lot of times, but it's been great for me having the background that I've had in the Fortune 100 corporations to be able to come and run a small business now and kind of see where we can take that business. So it's been a lot of fun these last 2 years.
Well, let's continue because, like I say, this will be posted on Ortho Town, and the orthodontists, they love this, but they're really stressed right now. I mean, if you're an old orthodontist, if you're an old dentist like me, and you've been doing ortho for 32 years, seeing Invisalign and seeing, I mean, we're out here in Phoenix, Arizona. Smiles Direct Club's opened up 5 stores. You got all that. What would you tell someone who's, since a quarter of our listeners are still in dental school and they're thinking, next year I'm going to apply to ortho school. And then the older orthodontists are like, it's not like it used to be. What do you think about the profession of ortho with all this new competition? Is it going to be a mass Cambrian explosion of a mass extinction level event, or spawn a new explosion of life? How do you see it?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at if I break down the market, I look at the U.S. population is about 315 million Americans, of which, depending upon who you talk to, people believe there's about anywhere from, let's call it 100 million that actually needs some type of orthodontic treatment. Even if you don't believe that number, let's just say it's 50 million. It's a big pool to play in. And right now, I think currently there's about 2 to 4 million people that are in active treatment. So if you look at the market opportunity, depending upon what number you believe, if you believe 100 million, you believe 50 million, there's still a ton of opportunity there to go get, patients into the orthodontic chair. So obviously Smile Direct Club has come in. I think they've done over 800,000 cases in their early infancy here. So they're definitely, and they're spending, I think, $250 million marketing to the consumer. And obviously, I mean, the consumer a lot of times is not necessarily fully educated on orthodontics. So when they hear price is $2,000 less and they hear that you can do it yourself, a lot of times in this instant gratification world that we live in, that's pretty attractive sometimes, especially when they can save some money. But what's interesting, though, is that, I think the orthodontists, I think it's going to be an opportunity to expand the pie for the orthodontists through this whole process because, depending upon, I mean, as you being an orthodontist, understand that, it takes a whole lot more than doing it yourself to fix teeth. And so we do believe in this profession. So I think there's going to be an opportunity on the back end of this that the orthodontic group is going to be able to get a lot of these patients that, may not be fully happy with their treatment in Smile Direct Club to come back into the orthodontic office and be able to do what they do best, which is, basically improve smile.
So do you think, but back to the question, if you were a junior in dental school and next year after graduation, you're thinking about it being an orthodontist, you still think that's a good move?
I do. I mean, I still think the fundamentals are there. It's not going to be the same profession. I mean, we got to think about the way the profession has been over the past few years. I mean, you hang your shingle and build it and they will come. I mean, orthodontists are getting referrals from the general dentists around. They're not, now general dentists are doing orthodontic treatment. You got your direct to consumer, you got the big corporates that are coming in with a lot of the dollars that are being spent there. So it's going to be a tougher environment. But if you look at the P&Ls of an average orthodontist, I mean, there's a ton of money that they're taking home. It might be less money that they're taking home, but I still think with a strategic business plan, there's an opportunity there to go capture the patient population that lives out there. And one of the areas that hopefully we get into later in this interview is around some of the market map technology and the demographic studies that we're doing from an orthodontic perspective to really understand where those patients potentially might be in the marketplace. And so from a strategic marketing standpoint, I think there's a really good opportunity for orthodontists to be able to, capture, where those patients are and bring them into their orthodontic office as they go forward with a little bit more sophistication in their marketing program.
Okay, well, I got to play devil's advocate because someone's got to be confused. You're talking about 2 brands. You remind me of the CEO of Yamaha. We both have an MBA degree, and they always taught core competency, only do one thing. And you have 2 things. You have gage.com and impact360.com. So I'm going to call you Mr. Yamaha because Mr. Yamaha became #1 in motorcycles and pianos. And everybody in Japan told him he had to pick one. And his passion was with both. And he became #1 in pianos and motorcycles. So what do you want to start with? Gage.com or impact360.com?
Well, I'll talk about Impact360 because that's a company that's been around for many years. So Mary Beth Kirkpatrick is the founder. She's been in the industry over 30 years. And she's had a very successful consulting company. And recently it's been renamed Impact360, I think in the early 2000s. And so and Impact 360 is a consulting arm. Mary Beth had the idea to create software bridges with the practice management softwares and pull up the key metrics that an orthodontist needs to run their practice. So that's where Gaidge was developed about 7 years ago. And since then, we've been able to grow the business to serve over 1,000 orthodontists in the U.S., pulling their metrics on an automated basis on a daily basis, so they can actually understand where they are managing their practice immediately in their day-to-day operations. So the consulting business feeds the Gaidge business, and the two are kind of go hand in hand with each other. So think of them as kind of divisions and complementary within each other in that business.
Nice. So Mary Beth, is she still running that?
Yeah, she's still very much involved on a day-to-day business. So I manage more of the financial piece on the consulting. She does more of the day-to-day operations on that, and then I manage, most of the Gaidge business as we look at it today.
Well, man, she might be an awesome podcast to follow after you.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if she's ready to go an hour or two, you should have her come on. And seriously, I think that'd be great. If she wants to come on after you, if she's free today, is she?
I can check. But she's got a great story to tell.
Yeah.
Her consultant.
So then talk about Gaidge. So now this is the new deal. This is Gaidge, intelligence for simpler, smarter orthodontic practice management. Leverage business insights from 80 plus practice metrics, 35 plus reporting dashboards, plus industry benchmarking and regional comparison data, so you can build and manage a better practice. So how old is this, and where is this at now?
So it's about 7 years old. And so what we have is a comprehensive dashboard that every night runs basically through each practice management system and pulls the key metrics out of that practice management system and bubbles that up on a dashboard. So an orthodontist, or an orthodontist practices staff, instead of having to root through hundreds of different lines of data or reports or Excel spreadsheets, can have everything automated and delivered to them, whether it be through the web version that we have, or we also have a mobile version on the phone. And so it gives you the different key metrics that it takes to run a practice, and it gives you that updated every single day, so where you're able to basically understand the health of your business. The other thing that I think is really great about Gaidge is that you can benchmark yourself with other practices that are submitting into Gaidge in aggregate. And so if you're in the Southeast and you want to see what other single doctor practices in the Southeast are doing, you're able to compare your practice to the aggregate in the Southeast and understand kind of, am I winning or losing based on, how I compare it to other like practices. And so that also gives you a chance to look at the U.S. dynamics, what's going on in the U.S. market, what's going on in your region, what's going on with your practice type. It gives you some really good insights into kind of how your practice is performing versus the other practices in your area or nationally.
And what he is summarizing is, since 2000, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have been acquired, merged, or bankrupted. By 2030, just 10 years from now, another 40% will most likely disappear. To put this in perspective, I was born in 62. And at that time, the average S&P 500 company was about 62. And now I'm 57, and today the average S&P 500 company is a teenager under 20 years old. And this new this new death certificate is brought to you by this new economic business model where they have DNA like Lyft, Google, Zelle, Square, Airbnb, Amazon, Twilio, Shopify, Zappos, Axios, Rocket Mortgage, LendingTree, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, Adobe, Autodesk, Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow, and Slack. And what those all have in common is the next big thing is this digital transformation intersection of elastic cloud computing, big data, IoT, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. And that's what you're really basing your Gaidge on.
Absolutely. And that's why I also believe that, we look at practices, and like I said, we roll up, we probably have over 1,000 orthodontists reporting into the Gaidge system. And so we can look in aggregate, what is the market doing? What is the industry doing? And we've even been challenged a handful of times just by, some of the other orthodontists out there. But we see with our orthodontists that are reporting into Gaidge that they tend to have more successful, faster growing practices. And that's just a function of, I think, watching their metrics, having their metrics delivered to them on a daily basis, and being able to understand those versus maybe just turning a blind eye to those and not necessarily paying as much attention to them on a daily basis. So, Gaidge has been a really helpful and successful tool for the orthodontists that engage with it and look at it on a daily, weekly basis to basically understand where their practices are performing and not performing. So it really gives you early indicators of where you can actually start to, do some course corrections or double down on if you're seeing some really good growth in those areas.
So are you looking at this data with the story from Mary Beth Kirkpatrick and all of her lifelong experience of this, or are you actually using AI and taking 1,000 offices data is very big data? Are you machine learning this data using AI to try to get these, or?
I mean, we have a software bridge, so everybody that signs up for Gaidge signs up for the software bridge, and so they're basically every night that data is running not only to the practice but also into the aggregate database. So each practice can see their own information, but they can also compare themselves to the aggregate database that we're creating as well. That I think is a pretty good indicator of some of the success that's going on in the market.
But
so that's how.
Are you in the future? Do you see yourself bringing in AI machine learning programmers to see what they can find in this big data, or are you just more aggregating the data?
Aggregating it right now, but absolutely. I mean, I think the future. There's a lot of AI that I think we can do some learning based on that. So I think that's definitely on the table. We have a pretty robust pipeline of things that we want to bring to the product line. And, AI is definitely on the table. It's just a matter of, how do we figure out what exactly will it do for us and how do we program it in?
So you have 1,000 customers right now with Gaidge, 1,000 orthodontists. And how many orthodontists you think are in the United States?
I think about 9,000 is the latest number.
Well, I mail Ortho Town magazine to 10,800 each month. So I'm pretty sure there's at least that many. Unless my circulation department lady is not paying attention, I'm just kidding. But to get 10% of a market is just profound. I mean, almost no one has 10% of any market. Why do you think 1,000 orthodontists with a dozen years of college became your customers? That's, first of all, congratulations on that. But what is the core value? What are you doing for them? Faster, what are you doing? What's the value proposition there?
I mean, the value proposition is the fact that you don't have to go look for your financials. Your financial information is delivered to you in a very easy to read, dashboardable format. So, an orthodontist by trade, in ortho school basically focuses on the clinical side of the business. And, the business side of the business isn't something that necessarily is taught throughout. Maybe it's some small classes here or there, but when an orthodontist gets out of ortho school running a whole business, there's a lot to learn there. And we want to just make that, very, very simple. And so that's where the solution and the value is for Gaidge, is that it provides an opportunity for this dashboard to be served up to the orthodontist on a daily basis for them to really understand where their practice is health-wise, constantly, versus having to really go look and hunt for that information. So that's where the real value is. And then the ability to compare too. I mean, we can't underestimate that. And I mentioned that before, but comparing to other like practices is a really big deal, because how am I doing versus what the market's doing? I mean, as we said now, I mean, a lot of the orthodontists, there's a level of fear based on all the surrounding activity that's going on in the marketplace. But as I mentioned, as we look at Gaidge users on average, the aggregate, I mean, we're still seeing pretty good growth. We just finished up Q2, and, we're seeing 2 to 4% growth in production and collection. New patients exams are kind of flat, or, they're slight growth at 1.5%, but starts are up 3.5%. So we're still seeing, decent growth in the industry. It's not negative by any means. It's not flat by any means. We're still seeing that low single digit growth, from our Gaidge users. So, how that compares to when you roll up maybe a JCO study, or if we were able to get everybody in aggregate across the US, I think we always seem to tend to be a point or two higher than, some of the other practices out there. And it's a function of just people being able to be aware of their metrics and see their statistics, on a daily basis in a very simple, easy, way. I mean, everybody's busy, right? You're running clinics, you're running a staff, you're running a business. And if you got to go spend a bunch of time pulling a bunch of Excel sheets together, if that's not automated, then I think you really, the data will be old by the time you get it. And then you won't do it as often because it takes a lot of time and it's cumbersome. So that's where I think the real value is with Gaidge.
So do you know why I asked you to come on the show?
No.
Well, it was from episode 1177. Have you ever met an orthodontist named Todd Vonenizer?
Yeah, Todd Bovenizer. Yeah, he's one of our great Gaidge clients. Absolutely.
Well, he's the one who said it first on Dentistry Uncensored. And so why do you think Todd, he says on your website, Gaidge is a lifeline to my practice. I have been spoiled with the easy to use graphic design. I review it every day to retrieve the pulse of the practice. But what I'm wondering, when you're looking at financials, he says that, on your own website, it says that a 12-month study, new Gaidge users reported an average of 8% increase in starts their first year, that the Gaidge practice's average case went up in their first year. In a 12-month study, new Gaidge users' collections increased 7%. They have 38% more starts. So what I'm wondering is, when I'm looking at all these dashboard metrics, how does that translate to more starts?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is, you understand, is my phone ringing. Let's just start at the first part of the orthodontic practice. I mean, new patient calls. If that's up or down, if it's down, then you need to go back and investigate your marketing program. How come my phone isn't ringing? And then if your phone is ringing to a level, then we have a whole analysis that we do. And this is all part of the Gaidge system, but it's around the leaky bucket. And so the leaky bucket basically is how many people are calling my practice, and then what's the fall off when those patients actually come in for an exam? And then when they come in for an exam, how many of those end up starting in my practice? And we'll see, actually through the Gaidge data, we'll see a pretty big fall off to the tune of 15 to 20% from new patients that call to actually show up for an exam. And then even after that, you'll probably see another 10 to 20% fall off between patients that come in for an exam to actually start. Now, obviously between there's certain kids that aren't ready. They go into observation. There's certain patients that just are just not candidates. They slip away. There's patients that say no. We get all that. There's definitely metrics for that. But, I think Todd Bovenizer has really been able to, and he has a very, very successful practice. And if we look at the Gaidge data, and we'll see, tremendous growth year over year with what he's been able to do. But it's something, Gaidge is something that he looks at every single day. And so he knows how many patient phone calls did I get yesterday, and how did that compare to the day before? And then from those patient phone calls, how many exams did I schedule? And from those exams, how many starts did I get? So it's really understanding, those metrics. Whereas if you're not looking at that at all, or you're looking at that maybe on a monthly basis, maybe there's certain patients that slip through the cracks and just don't come into your practice. So he's very, very vigilant as far as looking at, his metrics on a daily basis, and really understanding that waterfall, that we call it the consumer conversion waterfall, or the leaky bucket, as far as how those patients come into his practice and make it all the way to a start. And then obviously once they're in a start, they have, Bovie and Baker have great clinical excellence, which leads to more referrals, and that whole process, continues to repeat itself. So.
And what did you name the leaky bucket? I loved it. The leaky bucket is what?
The consumer conversion waterfall.
The consumer conversion waterfall. And I think that is just, you just summed up the business in a nutshell. The way I explain, I'm a general dentist, but what I believe I'm seeing, the numbers I believe, is that for every 100 people that land on a general dentist website, only 3 convert to call, 3 have to call for 1 to convert to schedule. And then when they come in with a cavity, you have to present 3 individual patients that they have a cavity for 1 to convert to do the dentistry. So the whole dental industry, which is 750,000 gross collections, netting 180, to do that 180 in fillings, 3 patients had to show up. For 3 to show up, 9 had to call. And for 9 to call, 300 had to land on your damn website. Hell, just fix anything on that. Pick anything on that, and you can go from 750 to 1.2 million. So absolutely. I love the leaky bucket consumer conversion waterfall. Do I have to pay you a royalty to start saying that in my seminar?
No, go for it. Just refer.
Yeah.
Refer to Gaidge.
Okay, so let's talk logistics. First of all, I know what my homies are thinking. They're thinking, well, how does Gaidge know who's calling my office? Are you connected to the incoming phone line, or is this through an orthodontic practice management software? And if so, which orthodontic practice software do you recommend? If that doesn't cause you a lot of channel conflict, I'm sure with 1,000 orthodontists. How many different orthodontic practice management software systems are your 1,000 clients using?
We're across the 6 major practice management softwares. We don't recommend any of them. That's not what I'm an expert in. We'll leave that to the orthodontist to figure that out. But we have a daily upload, as I mentioned. So we have a software bridge into our practice management partners. They're in this with us with Gaidge. So the minute we pick up the story, when the phone rings, and that's when the orthodontist would enter that patient's name into their practice management software. So we count those new patient calls. And so we are right now integrated with Ortho Track, Ortho 2 Viewpoint, Ortho 2 Edge, Cloud9, Tops, Dolphin. Or Tops is actually, we're integrating with them probably in the next month. And then we've also got Dolphin. So we've got the major 6 there.
Would you mind telling them the 6? Because there's a lot of kids out there just kind of name the 6.
Yeah, so we have Ortho Track. Then we have Ortho 2 Viewpoint, Ortho 2 Edge. We've got Cloud9. We've got Dolphin Management. And then we are in the final stages of onboarding Tops. Okay,
so you said Ortho Track. Is that one word, Ortho Track, TRAK?
TRAC.
TRAC. And then you said Ortho 2.
Yeah, Ortho 2 is the same company. They have 2 different softwares, though. They have Ortho 2 Edge and Ortho 2 Viewpoint.
Edge and Viewpoint. Were you calling those 2 different ones? Ortho 2?
Yeah, it's the same company, but it's 2 different softwares.
Okay, so Ortho 2 has Edge and Viewpoint. Then there was Ortho Track. That's 3. Then Cloud9, Tops. I'm missing one.
Dolphin.
Oh, Dolphin.
You had Dolphin.
And is Dolphin the same? That's the same company as the original Imager, isn't it?
I'm not Imager.
Yeah, remember back in the day, you had the Dolphin Image where you would it would take your SAF, but it would do the tracing all at once.
Dolphin Imaging, yes.
Yeah, Dolphin Imaging. Is Dolphin Imaging and the same company as the Dolphin software management software?
Yeah, I think it all rolls itself up. Yeah.
Okay, so then you're not connected to the phone line. No,
we're connected to the practice management system. That's where our software bridge is. So those are our partners putting together Gaidge. And that's the other nice thing about what Gaidge can do when we compare. We're kind of software agnostic to where we roll up the same data in Gaidge and then we can compare it across softwares. So even for group practices, sometimes group practices have multiple software programs in their groups. And so we can connect to all the different softwares and roll all that information up. And so therefore across multiple locations, they can all see their Gaidge data at the same rate versus having to look through 3 different lenses of 3 different softwares.
Okay, so there's a huge discussion on Dental Town, and it's really, no one's changing their mind whether rural is a good idea or urban is a good idea. And so you have this Gaidge analytics software that's mapping technology and the importance of using metrics to run your dental ortho business. So let's say she just graduated from ortho school. Should she go to the big city or should she go rural?
Okay. Well, it depends, obviously, right? And so what we have just launched with Gaidge is we're bringing in a partner, Epiphany Analytics, and we're launching a mapping software. And so what we've been able to do through our partnership here is we have teamed up with an individual, Carl Schroeder, who has 25 years of mapping experience. He's been doing this. He's got investment grade level data that's feeding his mapping software. He's put millions of dollars into his software to create it. And what's really differentiates this mapping solution to, I think, other solutions that are out there is that he has got a technology called the Flex Quad. And the Flex Quad is, imagine he's overlaid the United States with 3.4 million square mile Flex Quads. Think of it as a grid. And we can load data into those flex quads down to the square mile. So if you're talking about population, if you're talking about spend, if you're talking about age, if you're talking about income, if you're talking about number of students in schools, if we have the data, we can map it. And so when you go back to your question, what we've been able to do is put together those flex quads across the entire US, where a graduate coming out of school can take a look at the maps and understand, okay, where are all the competitive orthodontic offices? We can map that. We can map all the dental offices. We can map all the pediatric dentist offices. So then we can look at that, and then we can overlay that with, okay, let's look at market growth. Okay, where's the market growing as far as number of new households being built? And we can see total number of households, and we can also see a % growth year over year. Then we can also see information such as population growth. So where are the people at? Where are the people with certain high levels of income thresholds? Where are the people with kids who have, or where are the parents who have kids in the house that are 8 to 18 years old? We can slice and dice and segment all of that data down to the square mile for 3.4 million square miles of quads across the entire United States. We heat map it, turn it green, put a number in it, so it's very visually easy to see and understand where would the right opportunity be. And so we've created a handful of maps that are custom to the orthodontic dental industry that we believe are good indicators of where the people are. And this is where I go back to me being very bullish on the market, because we've been able to grab this information, and even behind. So basically, we know every single, there's a code that the credit agencies have on all of us called a persona code. Okay, so we all know we have credit scores, but behind our credit scores, we are delineated in one of 71 different persona codes. And every household is mapped to a persona code. And these persona codes are based on age, income, and spending habits. And so they're categorized. And so what we've been able to do with this mapping concept is now we can also map personas. So we know we are building a database of, we know what personas are saying yes to orthodontic treatment and what personas are saying no to orthodontic treatment. And we know every single household what it's mapped to from a persona standpoint. So this is information that Amazon and Facebook are using to target us. And so when it comes back to, orthodontists out there, and my market understanding of saying, hey, there's potentially 50 to 100 million orthos out there that, or sorry, not orthos, but there's 50 to 100 million potential patients out there with only 2 to 4 million patients in active treatment. I believe there's a great opportunity here for the orthos to use some of this sophisticated marketing to really target the personas that are coming in for orthodontic treatment. And like I said, we have each one of those households is mapped, and we can go find the lookalikes of who's coming into your practice, figure out where they are, and then you can market to them with direct mail if that's your route you want to go, or you can also do some geo-targeting, geofencing marketing on the digital side. So there's a handful of ways that you can reach a potential consumer with the right message. So the segmentation of the consumer now, I think we're on the cusp of something that could be really, really interesting for the orthodontic and dental market.
I mean, this is really crazy stuff. I mean, this is high tech.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And like I said, this is something that the investment community has been using. It's something that a lot of the sophisticated big companies use. And my thought is that, or our thought at Gaidge here is to bring this to the orthodontic dental community, where there's the opportunity to really go out and get really, really focused and targeted on this population base out there that I think can really help drive substantial growth. And we go back to our friend Todd Bovenizer. He and a handful of the doctors have been using it so far, and I know with his marketing specialists there, they've done some really cool targeted Facebook campaigns and digital marketing campaigns to go after these personas that are coming into their practice and finding the lookalikes in the surrounding area. So it's some really cool, sophisticated marketing that we're really excited to bring to the industry.
So is this the Epiphany? Out of Richmond, Virginia, marketing and advertising software, or is it the Epiphany out of Iowa?
No, it's out of California. It's out of California. Turlock. It's out of Turlock.
It's out of Turlock, California.
California.
Is that Southern or Turlock, California?
No, it's northern. It's south of Sacramento.
And is this? And did you say the founder of that was Carl Schroeder?
Carl Schroeder, yep.
He's the founder of Epiphany?
Yep. And we have an exclusive partnership with him in the orthodontal pedo space right now.
Gosh, I hope you go into general dentistry soon.
We're looking for it. We're ready for it. So,
who is the main orthodontic customer? Are they still, when we talk about the United States population of 327 million people, and there's 4 million cases right now being done. Of those 4 million, is that like 80% teenage kids in high school, or do you have the breakdown of a clear aligner adult versus kids?
Yeah, so in Gaidge, we actually track that. So we know adult exams versus child exams, adult starts versus child exam starts. So it's about a 70-30 child-adult split right now. That's where that's at. But with this information that we get with the mapping technology, it's based on the responsible party. So obviously, kids don't have a persona code yet because they're not of credit worthiness at this point. So we actually get the responsible party. So, you know, we know the parent, because the parents is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to the teenage group. So, you know, that's who's getting targeted with these messages. Obviously, there's a component there to target the teenagers through the digital piece, but you know, we also know kind of what parental households are coming in to the orthodontic office.
So does it look like the 70% child starts should be drifting downwards when you look at, you know, 1950 America, where the average family had over 5 kids, and now it's 2020 and they have, you know, less than 2 kids. Is child starts drifting down because people are having less kids?
Well, I mean, there is less kids. I mean, based on the census back, if you go back to like 2007, I believe. So, you know, that's what's starting to feed orthodontics right now. There are less children available, but then you're also getting an influx of more adults, especially with the liner therapy, that are wanting to do that. So that's taking on some of the population. Even with some of the demographic data that we've looked at with our persona studies, the categories are basically A through S, and then there's 71 different specific codes within that. But the C category is basically your 51 to 65-year-old empty nesters, you know, make good money, and they're actually one of the top segments in the orthodontic space, and they're going back in and they're wanting a liner treatment. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a trend. I don't know if it's a full transition, but we're definitely seeing it. Used to be something, you know, when I started, I think at Gaidge it was 80-20 child to adult. Now that's kind of moved to 70-30. In some months you get 65-35. Other months it oscillates back up to 75-25. But I would say on average, if you look at a running average, it's about 70-30 now.
Man, you could write the most awesome article for Ortho Town with all this stuff. Dentists love numbers. They love statistics. Will you do that?
I'd love to. Yeah, we'd absolutely love to.
Yeah, and also my job as a leader is you don't have to lead a dentist to go learn how to do implants and bone grafting. I mean, they're chefs. They were born to be in the kitchen. It's a leader to take their nose out of the kitchen and go stick it in their statement of cash flow and their balance sheet and their P&L. And they're just, I mean, if they were truly interested in that, they would have been accountants. They wouldn't have been orthodontists. But if you'd ever write an article and do an online CE course on why you need to know your numbers, I want to go back to the clear aligners. To see how biased my walnut brain is. Is clear aligners mostly women looking more beautiful? Is it 80-20, or do you actually have a bunch of old fat bald men getting clear aligners too?
I don't know the gender of that, so we don't have that level of information where we can segment out if it's male, female, or young, old. I really don't know. We just know adult, child. And we know we just don't know.
I think you should add that, because it's very different when you're doing social media marketing. It's very different finding a woman than finding a man. That's why sports. That's why the NFL, which starts their first game in 39 days. Not that I'm counting or anything, but in 39 days on Thursday when they play. But anyway, the reason sports are so valuable is because of the elusive young male wanting to buy their first car or truck, because they're very brand loyal. So if you start out with a Ford 150 at 18 to 20, you're probably going to buy a Ford 150 when you're 65 years old. And it's so hard to find males that's what's fueling the NFL, the NBA, NASCAR, anything where you kick a ball. Whereas women, you can find them in 100 different places. So that'd be very interesting marketing analytics to see the boy-girl thing on this. Would you agree or not really?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, Invisalign has all that information, right? Because they would know that in a heartbeat because they track all that. And obviously with the cases they get, but for us, we get patient counts and we get them by, age categories. We don't get them by gender. So at this point, we don't have that.
So you mentioned the Invisalign word. What do orthodontists think Invisalign has done to their market? I mean, is it a love-hate? Is it confusion? Is it stress? I mean, they obviously love the technology because I remember one of the big arguments on Ortho Town. It's like, well, if you hate Invisalign so much, why are you using them? Because it's good stuff. So how would you describe the relationship with orthodontists and Invisalign today?
I mean, it's mixed. It's mixed, I think, from what I hear. But I mean, I think Align does a lot of really good things. They're very business savvy. They know how to drive patients to a practice. And obviously the product is really, really good because orthodontists have been using that. And I mean, that's one thing that we track and gauge as well is share of chair. And we've seen, what Align has come from being 7% of total starts to now they're up to about 20% of total starts. In the United States. I mean, you can see that play out with their growth over time. Now, obviously, this last quarter, they missed the number, so they got whacked with the stock. But Invisalign's it's been a very solid business, and it's driven a lot of growth for a lot of practices. So, I get that there's a mixed relationship there. I don't want to comment too much on that, just because everyone has a different opinion. That's for each person to decide on their own. But I mean, they're they've always been an industry leader when it comes to, a product out there and driving consumer behavior. So, or consumer demand. I mean, so it's they've done a nice job driving the industry. So, and I know a lot of orthodontists have profited from them. But yeah, I also understand the flip side of that as well.
And you know why I ask it. That's why I named the show Dentistry Uncensored. I'm not going to talk about anything that everyone agrees on or they're not going to listen. I want to talk about everything that just makes their blood boil. So I want to ask you another technical deal. When we talk about the digital transformation, it's elastic cloud computing, it's big data, it's the Internet of Things, IoT, artificial intelligence. These dentists, when they're loading up to you, are the servers your capital expenditure, your servers, or are you utilizing cloud services? Are you hosting all this?
Gaidge is a cloud-based application. So yeah, we're cloud-based from our perspective.
But do you host your own cloud, or is it on Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure?
Yeah, like Amazon Web Services. Yeah, so
it's on Amazon Web Services. Yeah. Well, talk about the decision because, quite frankly, an American, they grew up having their own horse, their own ranch. We didn't go big into public transportation. There's just a lot of dentists who it just blows their mind to think that all their data is going to be sitting with Amazon. What would you say to that dentist who's really resisting the benefits of elastic cloud computing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's kind of the way the future is, but I also understand too that, even you go back to our phones and Alexa at home. I mean, I feel like everybody's listening to us. Even this mapping stuff that I just talked to you about. I mean, it seems very, very invasive as far as just from a privacy standpoint and people knowing like what my persona code is. So, it's something that, for our business, I mean, I think it's probably cost efficient and, it is safe and secure. We believe that we have a whole Impact 360 as a technology arm. And so one of our other partners, Mike Greger, makes sure that, and he really handles that. And he's more the expert on that to make sure that, we have some of the best secured information because we are pulling a lot of data. And we've been tracked too by, some of these dark web companies just to do some analyses on, how safe the data is from our perspective. And, we come up with very, very good reviews as far as not having something that, you can go grab. But as far as, putting that data, whether it's an Amazon server or someone else, I mean, I guess I don't know if I have just a real opinion on it other than that's kind of the way the world is going at this point. And, for us, I mean, I know from our technical perspective, like we're really, really safe with the data that, we put onto that. So we have a combination of a data farm plus some of the overload goes to Amazon Web Services. So we kind of have a hybrid approach to how we do it.
Now, is the hybrid approach your servers or versus Amazon, or is your hybrid approach different vendors?
It's our server. So we do have, like I said, with Mike Greger and his team, I mean, they built a data farm. And so we kind of hybridize, where that data resides. So we've got it in two different spots. But one part of it's homegrown and part of it's outsourced.
And if someone was thinking about doing cloud computing, there's only four. I mean, there's Amazon Web Services, there's Microsoft Azure, there's Google Cloud, and there's IBM Watson. You made a decision. You went with Amazon. If someone's out there thinking about it, why did you go with Amazon versus the other?
Honestly, that's a decision that was made before my time over here. So it's something I didn't make that decision. It was made by my Mike and Mary Beth a long time ago. So I don't really know the basis that went into that decision, other than I leave the technical side to Mike and understanding that everything's safe over there. So I don't know why they made that decision.
Well, that's another reason to go cloud computing. I mean, I hear about a dentist once a month getting ransom software, and then it happened to my son. And my own programmers, I got 5 programmers. They said, dude, throw your laptop away and you got to start from scratch. I mean, there's just the only thing that could make me not want to put everything on the cloud would just be the cost. Does it cost more? And then you got to verse that as a CapEx expense. Should I spend my capital buying new servers and upgrading and software? Or do I make it an operations expense where I just have a monthly fee like I do with rent, mortgage, the electric bill, the light bill, the Verizon bill? So I'll ask you that. Do you think cloud, would you rather put your money in a CapEx expense and buy more servers, or an operations expense and just pay Amazon a monthly fee?
I'd do it more the monthly fee, the recurring.
Right. And the other thing about cloud computing, you got to remember, it's elastic cloud computing. What that means is if you only use an hour a day, and you're charged an hour a day, let's say for 10 days, that's your fee. But if for some reason today we need all 10 hours, it elastically expands and will crunch your 10 hours, and you can't do that on your own servers. So I want to ask you another question, because you are looking at this orthodontic industry from 38,000 feet for over a decade, from Ormco, all that. What do you think the more successful orthodontists are doing more of, that are happier and more fulfilled and financially satisfied, as opposed to the orthodontists that aren't doing so well and aren't so happy and are frustrated? What do you think the successful ones are doing more than the non-successful ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's about the digital workflow in your practice, automating as many things as you can possibly automate. And, there's a lot of different opportunities out there, whether it be the products that you use or the systems that you use in your practice. So, I mean, I think those that are constantly willing to learn, I mean, there's a lot of progressive study groups out there and idea sharing. And so I think, those that, continue to, feel almost like they're, under attack every day, but are actually winning the game probably more than the other ones, because they're constantly out there trying to better themselves, continue to learn, continue to progress. And obviously the digital piece is a big part of that.
And what do you think of the orthodontic company, Jill Allen and Associates, Practice Results, a practical approach to practice management?
Jill Allen? Uh-huh. I mean, we've started to partner with her now. So just to let you know, like, she consults as well as our Impact 360 business. So, we do vie for the same customers in some places. So they are considered a competitor. But the other cool thing about the industry is that we work along with a lot of our consulting competitors in a very collegial way to work together and, kind of stay in our own zone. So we've worked with Jill for about the last year. I mean, she's great. And I know she really taps into a lot of the new graduates coming right out of school. So she's been a really good resource for those that I've had limited experience with her, but for, who she's worked with, I know, people speak very highly of her, and they do the same stuff that Impact 360 does as well. So, we kind of stay on the same space there.
And kids, what he just said is he thinks in hope, growth, and abundance. He doesn't live in fear and scarcity. I mean, it's just so bizarre that you'll talk to some dentist that lives in a different country on Facebook or Dental Town, but you've never had lunch with the same dentist in your own medical dental building. And you know who orthodontists and you know who everybody competes against is, when someone's going to buy ortho for $6,500, the competition is a vacation to Disneyland, Disney World, a cruise, something like that. And if you just think in hope, growth, and abundance, you'll just grow the pie. And I think that's just very admirable that you have an advertisement on your website for Jill Allen, who has a product that competes with your own company, and you have an ad on her own website. I just think that's so cool because attitude is everything. And people who think in hope, growth, and abundance, they do so much more well than the ones that are always walking around in fear. Do you see any other variables of success? Are there any clinical variables?
Well, I mean, I think the market's going to, clinically, aligners have obviously been a hot topic because it's consumer driven right now, and clinically they're getting better. There's a couple other new technologies out there that I think remain to be seen kind of from a clinical perspective, what that's going to be like. And so I think, there's always going to be innovation, working at Ormco and 3M, those companies are built on innovation and the pipeline of what they have behind the curtain there. They're constantly working on, new ways for faster treatment, less invasive treatment, things like that. So, I mean, I think, the market's going to continue to, develop, new innovations. I don't know exactly what those are going to be. I mean, right now, obviously, aligners are the hot topic, and it's consumer driven because of the lack of invasiveness of it. But I think, as far as the future goes, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I think in these pipelines, these companies they're going to bring to the market, and it's going to, hopefully speed is something that they can, reduce orthodontic treatment down from something that could be 18 to 24 months down to less than 12. That's definitely going to catch the eye of people. But those are just kind of my thoughts on, there's constantly going to be innovation in this marketplace, and, there will be something that comes out and probably competes with, aligners probably at some point. I just don't know what that's going to look like.
Huh. And I can't believe we're almost done with our time. But what would you? We just had a bunch of kids come out of school. What do you think about their decision to graduate $284,000 in debt and go into dentistry? I noticed when KKR bought a lion's share of Heartland Dental, one of the things that they were saying is that dentistry is just not going away. I mean, as people get richer and richer and richer, they're going to bid up the price of healthcare. The Mayo Clinic brothers were the first one to realize that it defied logic, where people would sell their lifelong farm to treat 85-year-old grandma's cancer to keep her alive one more year. So everybody's bidding up the price of healthcare. But what advice would you give to the young orthodontists who are going to graduate in a year or two or coming out of school? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always, like you said, there's always going to be a patient population. As long as society continues to exist, there's going to be the need for dental. There's going to be the need for orthodontic treatment. I think part of our message at Gaidge is about, how do you run a successful business, and really understanding, when you set up shop, do you have the right overhead? Do you have the right goals in place? Do you have the right marketing program to support your goals? You can't shy away from it. And yes, there are pressures with direct to consumer, with pricing pressures. You're not going to get the 6,500 anymore. That pricing from an orthodontic case might, drop down into 3,000 or 4,000s over time. But as you mentioned, the competition of what a lot of these orthos are competing with is their vacation or their next new car. The margins are going to be pinched a little bit, but it's still a really healthy living when you consider, the rest of these other jobs that folks are doing, these other professions that folks are in. And I think too, being very strategic and understanding the business side combined with the clinical side, there's still a lot of opportunity for you to run a very, very successful practice. And we see it every day, even though there is a lot of pressure in the industry right now. Those we believe that are measuring their metrics, that are, leveraging the consultants in the industry, are actually really thriving. And it's a small price to pay in order to get a huge amount of return. You can't save your way to prosperity. I think you have to invest. I think you have to lead. You've got to hire the right people. You got to be a great leader, someone that people will follow. But then also, I think, looking at your metrics and putting a strategic plan in place in order for you to go after the market and understand that. And that's what we're trying to support you, whether it be Impact 360 Consulting, whether it be Gaidge, or even our new market map technology, because we believe there's a ton of patients out there. If I go back to my opening comment where you said 327 million Americans, I had 315, give or take, right? But if 100 million need treatment and only 2 to 4 are in treatment, that's a big pond to fish in. If we're doing it right and we're doing it strategically, and there's a way to grow that pie for the overall orthodontic business. So, the fact is a lot of these orthos are in this thing now, and they have to change and they have to evolve in order to kind of stay on top. And then there's going to be a lot of orthos and dentists coming out of school, and they're going to be dealt with a new market. I mean, change is inevitable in any industry that you're in, and you just have to adapt to that. So, that's my advice, is that you pick the profession, you're in the profession, figure out how to win in the profession and move with the change.
Well, on Twitter, you're at Gaidge Ortho. I love your name, Gaidge. I mean, it's a gauge, but you spelled it Gaidge. Gaidge, Gaidge, at Gaidge Ortho. And I just retweeted your last tweet 4 hours ago. And thank you to the 25,000 dentists who follow me on Ortho. It really is an honor. Your last tweet that I retweeted to my homies says, just because you are a smaller business doesn't mean you have to sit on the sidelines when it comes to big data. Read our blog to learn more. What did you want to talk about that blog, or is that from the marketing department? You haven't seen it yet.
Oh, the blog that's on our website for big data?
Yeah. Why big data is difficult for practices to manage?
Well, it's more or less, like you said, the core competency of the average orthodontist is clinical in nature, right? You don't necessarily go to MBA school and get the business degree, and you're not necessarily used to looking at a lot of different metrics. But there's a ton of money in these small businesses for orthodontists, whether you're $1 million practice or a $4 million practice, in whatever range you're in. By you managing your business, you can create and carve out a very, very healthy lifestyle. So, I think the big data piece of that, from an orthodontic perspective and from a single doctor practice perspective, is really, really critical for running a very effective business.
So something that's changed from when I got out of school. When I got out of school in '87, we were laughing at the freshmen because they were installing computers when we were walking out. And we thought, oh, we're glad we got out. We'll never have to learn computers or Fortran or any of that noise. And there was no such thing as social media. And I know that social media is a big thing. And I know that on your website, you're talking about it's a marketing equalizer for every orthodontic practice, big and small. One way to unlock insights from social media is by tracking online mentions of your business with online tools like mention.com. Is this social media a game changer? And I want to tell you why I'm specifically asking this. A lot of older orthodontists who are my age say, well, I don't care about their daughter on Instagram or whatever the heck. The mom's the one who's going to make the appointment and pay the $6,500, and she's not on Instagram. So the social media, it's a big change. Talk about social media and your online tools like mention.com.
Yeah, social media is the way the world works. You can like it or hate it, but that's how people are finding information, and that's how they're absolutely, coming to understand where your practice is and what your practice offers. People are talking about you, all the time. They're posting information, and part of it, for me, you look at social media and it's like, man, you get that comparison trap, and you look at that and you're just like, man, that family's perfect, or, her teeth are great, or look at me, but it's everyone has their own stuff behind the scenes. But social media is a way, though, that you can reach people very, very quickly, and there's no other way to do it. And it's revolutionized the world. It's revolutionized marketing. And so, the more that an orthodontic practice can be intertwined in that web of social media, the more mentions they're going to get. And back to that comment where, the daughter is probably going to go to mom and say, hey, I learned about, Dr. Smith or whatever, on my Instagram account. And that's going to get the mom interested in starting to look at, should we be doing something as far as going in to see Dr. Smith from a decision-making standpoint. The mom's still going to make the decision, but I think that the child, a lot of times, even from a social media standpoint, is probably going to do some of the research to get that mom towards that decision making. So social media is, I mean, it's a critical part, especially in this direct to consumer world that we live in, from an orthodontic perspective, a dental perspective. And it's something that, every orthodontist and dentist, I think, has to absolutely understand. It's constantly changing, and capture and align a program and spend dollars and make investments based on, how you can optimize that for your practice.
I want you to tell me your what did you call it? The leaky bucket. The leaky bucket. My God, I'm not going to be able to steal this for you. Couldn't even memorize it. The leaky bucket consumer conversion waterfall. I said that I believed in the general dentistry market, that it's basically 100 people have to land on your website for 3 to convert. 3 have to call for 1 to come in, and you got to tell 3 people they need a filling before before 1 gets it done. Are you seeing something different than that in the orthodontic world? What are you seeing? How many people have to land on the website to call?
Yeah. So from a Gaidge perspective, we're starting to learn that story. So we don't have hard metrics as far as how many land on the website to call. We do know when they call, about 20% of them don't come in. The target's 10. So we think that's a leak right there, to where, how do you, because right now, I mean, we know in orthodontics, you're getting shopped. I mean, it's not, in the past, it used to be hey, go to see Dr. Smith. You'd go in and you would just go, and whatever treatment they wanted to do, they would do. Now it's, Dr. Smith, Dr. Jones, and Dr. Paul. I mean, there's 3 different doctors now that they're probably, benchmarking and talking to. So, what we see a lot is that, you'll get the patient phone calls and they'll give you their name and information. They'll schedule and then you'll have a 20% fall off to the exam, where you should only have probably about a 10% fall off. And so there's just different protocols that you can do there to get those patients into the exam. A lot of it's just, phone call protocol. A lot of it's timeliness of the exam. A lot of it's just how you sell your brand and differentiate yourself. And then when you actually get them into the exam, there's a fall off there to how many start. Now, granted, some of them aren't ready for starting, but then, there's a conversion rate that we track in orthodontics. It's around 67 to 70% conversion. So you're seeing even then a 30% fall off from who comes into the exam to actually who starts. So some doctors have gotten that up to 75, 80%, but on average, if you look across our portfolio of Gaidge, it's about 65%. So there's still a huge opportunity there. So if you look at, let's just say now our average case price is about $5,000. If you have 600 or 700 patients that call you per year, and you lose 10% that don't even come in for an exam, and then you lose another 30% that don't start, I mean, your leaky bucket there alone could be upwards of a few $100,000. So it's a major number now. Every practice is going to be a little bit different. And that's one of the tools that we have at Gaidge, is we can actually analyze that down to the dollar based on the metrics that you have in our system. But what's really interesting about that is that every practice will have a leaky bucket somewhere. And it's just a matter of, how big it was. I was actually in a practice over a year ago, and this practice is on Gaidge, multiple location practice, and his leaky bucket was $1.2 million. And when I walked him through it, actually tears fell out of his eyes, because I validated every single one of the points that he knew that he was falling short on. But it was something that going forward they could easily correct and put protocols in place. But that's something that if you're not looking at your metrics and you're not watching, you're not going to pick up on those types of trends. And that's why I think it's, really helps differentiate really solid practices from other practices, those practices that know their metrics. And can kind of understand that. And that's where, companies like ourselves with Impact 360 and Gaidge can really help from a consulting standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, and just from a metric standpoint, really help the orthodontist, on their practice journey.
And when you say people are shopping, do you think they're shopping? What do you think they're shopping? Mostly just all price or convenience, or what do you think they're shopping?
It's probably a lot of different things. It's price, convenience, just how do you connect? Now, it's a very social world, right? Where you want to be able to connect with that doctor. It's not just about going to a doctor. The doctor has to have a level of personality and be able to connect with you. So, I think there's, price is a big indicator, right? Because they're probably wanting to save $500 from one to the next, if that matters. But also just that connectivity, I think, with the staff and the doctor, I think it plays a big role in the overall selling of the case.
So you guys are saying that that of the people that call, 80% are going to come in. So 20% is leaking and 10% should be the goal. But when they present orthodontics to people who need it now, that they're having a 70% acceptance rate. So only a 30% leakage.
30% then from there, but you've also lost 10% from those new patient calls into the exam. I'm doing 30% just from the people that came in from the exam, 30 to 35.
Well, then they're doing twice as good as a general dentist because they got to tell 3 different people they have a cavity before one schedules to have it done. Now, I don't know if it's if they're more motivated to get ortho, because it's when I tell someone they have gum disease, 10 cavities, and need periodontal treatment and a ton of fillings, the first question they ask is, can I get bleaching done today? So, they just want to look like a pretty little peacock. So it might have a higher conversion rate because you're selling something that makes them more beautiful. You've been so good on this interview. Is there anything, I can't believe we went over an hour. We're at hour 7. Is there anything that I was too dumb to ask that you wish we would have talked about?
No, I think you covered it. It was great. I appreciate this. So thank you for all of this. It was great.
And by the way, if you're on Twitter, which I know all the old dentists are on Twitter. I know all the young dentists are on Instagram. If you're a millennial, you're on Instagram, and if you're a grandpa, you're on Twitter, and if you're a businessman, you're on LinkedIn. But looking at the articles that you tweet out, Dr. Kristen Fitz on how Gaidge powers our organization's growth and efficiency, that's a must read. I mean, you just got a lot of great content on your Twitter, and I hope you do write us an article for Ortho Town, and I think you should do a practice management article, or maybe have Mary Beth do that. But I just want to tell you, the orthodontists are going to love this. The general dentists are going to love this. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was a real honor and a privilege to podcast you.
I appreciate it.
I hope that you leave this podcast and go hire your first AI genius. Everyone that I've tried to hire for my company, I've been courting them for years, and they're going to ASU, and then they come out of school and man, they just want to work on a robot. And they're like, dentistry, it's just so boring. It's hard to get an AI guy and capture his imagination with root canals and crowns when you could be going to Boston Market and making a jumping robot. So if you have any leftover AI guys from your interviews, send them to Old Dental Way, because I think it's the whole future. So again, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Sure. I got one question for you. You mentioned, who's your football team?
Arizona Cardinals.
Okay, Kyler Murray. All right, it's gonna be fun to watch him.
Yeah, it is gonna be so fun to watch him. Who's your team?
Broncos.
And you know what's weird? I just saw a map. Talk about a heat gauge map of where all the NFL fans are, and the Denver Broncos. They got all of Colorado and every state around them, whereas the Cardinals is just Arizona.
Yeah, I figured in Arizona, there's definitely some Denver fans down there, so that's why I had to ask.
Why do you think the Broncos have like a 6-7 state? I mean, they own Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, Idaho, Montana. Why do you think they own that whole territory?
There's nothing else around there, right? I grew up in New Mexico. That's how I got the Broncos love, right?
Yeah.
So Utah, there's nothing. Wyoming's nothing. Miami or Montana's nothing. Idaho's nothing. Nebraska's nothing. The Dakotas, you maybe get a little Minnesota Viking there, but so they own that Rocky Mountain region. I'm
a big John Elway fan. That guy's amazing. And Pat and Manning, giving him another year to go show his stuff. But again, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
All right. I appreciate it. Take care. Thanks.